January 23rd, 2026. Mark this date, because 71 million Americans just woke up to a lie. They woke up thinking their retirement was safe. They woke up thinking the government trust fund was real. They woke up expecting a check that has been promised to them since 1935. But here is what they don't know. The money isn't there. It's not running low. It's not at risk. It is gone. As you listen to this, the combined Social Security deficit just crossed $67 billion for the fiscal year. That is not a projection for the future. That is the reality on the ledger right now. The official trustees report. The government ES own accounting admits that the main retirement fund hits absolute zero in 2033. 7 years. That is the timeline between you and poverty. When that clock strikes zero, the law mandates an automatic 23% cut to every single check. But I'm going to tell you the secret that makes that 23% cut look like a mercy. Because what is coming isn't a cut. It is a total systemic liquidation. Every government promise in history dies in 4 specific stages. Weimar Germany went through it. The Soviet Union went through it. Greece went through it. And right now, the United States is deep into stage 3. I am going to show you the math they are hiding. I am going to prove it with 3 historical examples. And I am going to show you why your Social Security check might keep arriving, but it won't buy you a loaf of bread. This is veiled wealth, and the countdown has stopped. Let's look at the pattern. Here is how every government promise dies. 4 stages. The pattern never changes, only the timeline, only the names. But the outcome is identical every single time throughout history. Stage 1 is the setup. A government makes a promise. Pensions for workers, healthcare for the elderly, security in retirement. Here is the key. The promise actually works at the beginning. The math is sound. You have a young population, lots of workers paying in, and very few retirees collecting. Tax revenue exceeds benefit obligations. The system is solvent. Politicians celebrate. The promise becomes sacred, untouchable. Everyone believes it will last forever. Stage 2 is expansion and overextension. The initial promise wasn't enough, so they expand it. More benefits, earlier retirement ages, automatic cost of living increases, better coverage. Meanwhile, something shifts underground. Demographics change. Fewer babies are born. People live longer. The ratio of workers to retirees collapses. Suddenly, the math stops working. But nobody adjusts the promise. Instead, they adjust the funding. They raise taxes. They borrow. They manipulate the accounting. They push the problem into the future. Always into the future. Because admitting the promise is broken means political death. Stage 3 is the crisis. The gap between promises and resources becomes impossible to hide. Trust funds start depleting. Deficits explode. The government faces a binary choice. 2 options. Option A, break the promise explicitly. Option B, destroy the currency. And here's what you need to understand. They never ever choose to break the promise. Not willingly. Because cutting benefits means riots. It means losing elections. It means political annihilation. So they choose the other path. They keep the nominal promise. Your check arrives. The amount is there. But they destroy what that check can buy. They pay you in money that is worth less than worthless. Stage 4 is the inevitable outcome. Hyperinflation, currency collapse, or both. Benefits continue arriving, but they purchase nothing. A pension that once paid for a comfortable retirement now buys a week of groceries, then a day, then a meal. The promise is technically kept, but it is meaningless. Millions who planned their entire lives around that guarantee discover they have been lied to. Not by a conspiracy, but by arithmetic. Because you cannot print prosperity. You cannot promise what you cannot pay. And eventually reality forces the truth. This isn't theory. This is the historical record. Let me prove it to you. Look at Weimar Germany in the 1920s. The pattern compressed into less than a decade. Stage 1, Germany after World War I. They have extensive social programs, pensions for workers, benefits for disabled veterans. In 1919, these programs work. The paper mark is stable. $1 equals 4 marks. The social contract is functioning. Stage 2 arrives fast. By 1921, the bills come due. The government can't cut benefits because the people won't allow it. So they print. The Reichsbank starts expanding the money supply. Inflation begins slowly. 3%, then 5%, and then 8%. But pensions still arrive. Benefits get paid. Workers think they are protected. Politicians claim they are defending the people. Then stage 3 hits like a freight train. 1922. The printing accelerates. Pensioners notice their benefits buy less food, less fuel, so they demand increases. The government complies. They raise the nominal pension amounts, which requires printing more money, which causes more inflation, which triggers more demands for increases. It is a death spiral that feeds on itself. Stage 4. 1923, total collapse. October. Inflation hits 299 billion% in 1 month. Pensions that could purchase a house in 1919 can't buy a postage stamp in 1923. Retirees who trusted the government for their entire lives are financially destroyed. People burn currency for warmth because it is cheaper than buying firewood. The social contract doesn't just break, it disintegrates. But maybe that's just Germany, right? A war-torn nation. Unique circumstances. Surely it can't happen to a superpower. Let's test that theory. The Soviet Union, a global superpower. Nuclear arsenal, space program. Their social welfare system was the centerpiece of communist ideology. Guaranteed pensions, free healthcare, subsidized housing. The state controlled everything, and for decades it worked. Stage 1 runs from the 50s through the 70s. Soviet pensions are guaranteed. Full employment is mandatory. The promise is backed by the full power of the state. Stage 2 emerges in the 80s. The system starts cracking. Working age population growth slows. Military spending explodes. Oil prices collapse. But pension promises remain unchanged. So they print rubles. They manipulate exchange rates. They raid reserves. The government keeps the promise alive through monetary tricks. Stage 3, late 80s. The gap becomes a chasm. Store shelves empty. Basic goods vanish. But pensions still get paid. The rubles arrive on schedule every month. Retirees line up at banks, collect their money, then stand in bread lines for hours because the rubles are becoming worthless. Inflation is devouring purchasing power faster than the government can raise nominal payments. Stage 4, 1991, the collapse. The ruble becomes literal toilet paper. Pensions continue being paid, but they are meaningless. Elderly workers who gave their entire lives to the state die in poverty, freezing in apartments, because they can't afford heat. The promise was kept all the way until it wasn't. Still not convinced? Let's get even closer to home. A democratic nation, a modern economy, Western values. Greece, 2009. Stage 1, Greece joins the euro. Generous pension system. Average pension is 96% of final salary. Retirement age as low as 50 for some jobs. It works as long as borrowing stays cheap. Stage 2, the 2008 crisis hits, revenue craters. Pension obligations stay fixed. They can't print euros, so they borrow. Debt to GDP explodes, but pensions keep getting paid. Politicians claim everything is under control. Stage 3, 2010, the music stops. Markets shut them out. The EU steps in with bailouts, but demands austerity. Pension cuts. Stage 4, 2015, capital controls. Banks limit withdrawals to 60 euros per day. Retirees stand in bank lines unable to access their own accounts. They can't pay rent. They can't buy medicine. The system didn't totally collapse only because the EU propped it up. But the promise was shattered. 3 examples, 3 completely different political systems, 3 different time periods, identical outcome every time. Now, let me show you where Social Security is in this exact same pattern. And I am going to use the government's own numbers. Stage 1, 1935. Franklin Roosevelt signed Social Security into law. The initial promise is modest. Retirement at age 65. Life expectancy in 1935 was 61. Most people died before they collected a dime. The worker-to-beneficiary ratio was 42 workers paying in for every 1 person collecting. 42 to 1. The math worked beautifully. Revenue exceeded obligations by enormous margins. The promise was sustainable. Check. Stage 1 complete. Stage 2 begins immediately and accelerates. 1956, disability benefits added. 1965, Medicare created. 1972, cost of living adjustments made automatic. Benefits expand. Promises multiply. But watch the demographics. 1945, the ratio is 41 to 1. 1950, it drops to 16 to 1. 1960, 5 to 1. 1980, 3.2 to 1. Today, January 2026, 2.8 workers per beneficiary. The ratio has collapsed from 42 down to less than 3. The math has completely broken. But the promises keep expanding. Meanwhile, the government's response is textbook stage 2 behavior. They raised the payroll tax 6 times. They increased the wage cap. They delayed the retirement age to 67. They borrow from the trust fund to pay for other programs. They use every accounting trick available. The 2025 Trustees Report projects the trust fund depletes in 2033. When that happens, tax revenue covers only 77% of benefits. But here's the critical insight. Congress won't act, not meaningfully. Because meaningful reform requires political suicide. Cut benefits, electoral death, raise taxes dramatically, electoral death. So they delay, they blame each other, they push the crisis forward. Check. Stage 2 verified. Stage 3. This is where we are right now. The gap between promises and resources is undeniable. The trust fund lost $67 billion last year alone. The demographic collapse is locked in. 10,000 people turn 65 every single day. The fertility rate is 1.6. We are not replacing our workers. The ratio is projected to hit 2 workers per beneficiary by 2030. The government faces the choice: cut benefits explicitly or debase the currency. And just like Weimar, just like the Soviets, just like Greece, they will choose debasement. They will call it something else: quantitative easing, yield curve control, emergency liquidity. But it is printing. Why? Because it is politically survivable. You can't campaign on "I cut grandma's Social Security," but you can campaign on "I kept the promise," even if that promise is paid in devalued dollars. The Federal Reserve will step in. They will monetize the debt required to keep Social Security solvent. Your check will arrive. That is the key point. The nominal amount will be there. They might even increase it, but the dollar itself will be worth less, significantly less. This is already happening. You can see it in the numbers. Food prices are up 23% since 2020, housing up 37%, healthcare up 29%. Real purchasing power for Social Security recipients has declined every single year since 2010. The government manipulates the inflation data to hide this. They use the CPI-W index, which underweights housing and medical costs, the 2 things seniors spend the most on. It is a statistical lie designed to suppress your cost of living adjustment. This is the Stage 3 trap. You get your payment, but it purchases less every year. And finally, Stage 4, the inevitable outcome. When the trust fund hits 0 in 2033, the law requires a 23% cut. But Congress will change the law. They have to. They cannot allow 71 million voters to lose a quarter of their income overnight. So they will authorize the Treasury to cover the shortfall. Where does the Treasury get the money? They borrow it. They issue bonds. But who buys the bonds when the debt is $50 trillion? The Federal Reserve buys them. They print new money to buy the bonds to fund the Social Security checks. This creates a feedback loop of inflation that destroys the currency. Retirees will watch their purchasing power collapse. Food costs 20% more, housing 30% more, but their check only increases by 2%. The government's solution: print more. Increase nominal benefits to match inflation, which requires more bonds, which requires more Fed printing, which causes more inflation. The death spiral. If you're receiving Social Security now, or planning to in the next 10 years, here is your reality, unfiltered. Your benefits will likely be paid. The nominal dollar amounts on your statement will probably arrive every month. The government will maintain the appearance of keeping the promise, but those dollars will buy less, significantly less. If you are living on Social Security alone, you will fall below the poverty line, not because payments stop, but because inflation outpaces the adjustments. If you are currently working and paying into the system, you are funding a liability that will give you far less than you paid in. There is no way out of this trap. Immigration won't save it. We would need 5 million high-earning immigrants a year for 20 years just to stabilize the ratio. It's not happening. Taxing the rich won't save it. You could confiscate 100% of billionaire wealth, and it funds the government for maybe 6 months. Productivity won't save it. Robots don't pay payroll taxes. The mathematics are final. The demographic winter is here. The solvency crisis is here. And the debasement of the dollar is the only tool they have left. Social Security was a promise made in a different world, for a different demographic, based on math that no longer exists. Do not rely on it. Do not plan for it. Because the check might be in the mail, but the money is already gone. This is veiled wealth. We don't sell hope. We sell the truth. Protect yourself.